Hey guys, are you ready to transform your mind so you can transform your life? Coach Myrna brings you one-on-one coaching and expert guests weekly to help you to grow. Because happiness is the progressive realization of a worthy goal.
Looking for personal growth? Let's do it. This episode is brought to you by Spark Energy Plus Focus. Let me share something personal. I'm actually very sensitive to caffeine, so starting my day with strong coffee doesn't work for me. I feel energized throughout the day, and then I'm up half the night. That's why I like Spark Energy. It gives me clean, steady energy without the caffeine overload. I can start my morning with Spark, get my workout in, record my podcast, and stay focused throughout the day and not have that 4 p.m. fade. Spark Energy Plus Focus is offering 30% off and free shipping. Go to drinkspark.com and use code TRANSFORM at checkout. That is DRINKSPARK.com. Use code TRANSFORM for 30% off plus free shipping. The right outfit doesn't just change how you look, it changes how you show up. There's something powerful about the way you show up in the world. That's why I'm excited to share one of my favorite discoveries with you, Quince. Quince is a casual luxury brand priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/TYM for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/TYM for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TYM.
Ayurveda are those the Vedic civilization that formed in India and created that science. Traditional Chinese medicine, homeopathy, all stem from that same Vedic wisdom. So there's going to be some core similarities if someone studies TCM versus Ayurveda versus homeopathy. It's all about coming back kind of into alignment, right? And so when you look at Ayurveda and you think about energy, and when you understand where food plays a role, which we'll go over, they believe in Ayurveda, the ancients, that, and this is what we follow, that the emotions and the physical are one, meaning even what you eat, even as I'm sipping on this cumin coriander fennel tea, that tea has a vibration, has an energy to it. It has what we call prana, life force, to it. This is the funny thing. If I took a cup of water, let's say, and put some seeds in there and stuck it in the microwave, nuked it, for example, as they say, microwaved it, that changes the vibrational energy of the water. And what Ayurvedic teachers of mine have said is don't microwave your food or your drinks.
Welcome to the Transforming Mind podcast, where we just don't talk about healing. We teach you how to transform from the inside out. So let me ask you a question. What if stress isn't just something to manage, but something to understand? So many of us are walking around exhausted, overwhelmed, anxious, and we think it's just life. We push through, we drink more coffee, we just try to cope. But what if your body has been speaking to you this whole time and you have just not learned the yang language yet? Today, I'm joined by Dr. Trupti Gokani, a board-certified neurologist and holistic mindset coach who is changing the way we understand stress, burnout, and chronic conditions. She teaches that your mind, your gut, and your body are all connected, and when you learn how to decode your unique stress personality, everything begins to shift. So if you've been feeling stuck, burnt out, or like your body isn't working for you, this episode is going to open your eyes in a powerful way. Welcome, Dr. Gokani.
Oh, thank you for having me, Myrna. I'm so grateful.
I have to sing her name so that I can say it right.
Gokani, Trupti Gokani. It is an unusual name. I have to say what Trupti means. Trupti means the state of satisfaction, contentment.
Right.
So how about that?
Nice.
Relieving stress brings us to a state of contentment.
That's right. So you were born for this work.
I feel as I was
Amazing.
born. This is my dharma. You got it.
And I was chuckling to myself when we
Yeah.
talked about drink more coffee
Yeah.
because Dr. Trupti came on saying that she's got coffee in both hands
Yes.
because she
Yes. But it's a mushroom couch.
managing her stress.
And it's my cumin coriander fennel tea. So I am double fisted today because we have a lot of things going on, don't we, Myrna? So
Yes.
I live and I practice what I preach. I don't care
What you
what people tell
preach.
you. Everything I talk about, I've tried this on myself. So I
Oh,
promise you.
that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
There's a saying that says, "Don't just what I say, but what I do." Right? So
Yes.
you got to match them up
Right.
together.
Exactly. Exactly. We've got to own that we are all part of this together. This is
All
a
right, let's get it.
yeah.
Awesome. All right, well, let's dive in to
Yeah.
this amazing conversation. So, Dr. Gokani, you say that 90% of doctor visits are stress related. Why are we still missing this in healthcare?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up as the first point to think about because when we enter a physician's office, provider's office, understand that underneath the symptom, whatever the symptom may be, we know this based on 5,000-year-old ancient medicine and more recent data. National Institute of Mental Health has shown this that 90% of doctors' visits are due to stress-related conditions, meaning that stress is when we disconnect with ourselves, creating the symptom to come to its surface. Yet most physicians treat the symptom. Yet they're not looking at the root cause of what is the specific stressor that allowed the symptom to come. And that's what ancient medicine gives us wisdom on, which I'd love to share.
Yeah, instant and functional medicine
Yep.
doctors, because almost every doctor I interview in the show are functional medicine doctors, which doesn't when you go in for foot pain, they don't
Yep.
just look at the foot, they look and in fact I had a podiatrist on here.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
said that when somebody comes in with a bunion, it
Yeah.
means something else. Who would have ever thought in the olden days that somebody can look at the foot and connect what why you have a bunion in your foot? But yeah,
Yeah.
most of the physicians or doctors I talk to on this show are functional health. So
Yeah.
the, I thought that the answer to the question would be because stress causes sickness.
Yeah, and the thing is, and it most certainly does. And stress, unrecognized stress, and how stress shows up as a physical complaint is the biggest challenge. Is because physicians, you asked why physicians don't really kind of know that or address it. They don't see that connection. Most Western trained physicians, of course, functional medicine is a different conversation. Yet, I will tell you, I trained in functional medicine, and I started training in functional medicine. Actually, switched into Ayurveda. I love functional medicine, but even in functional medicine there was a component of it that felt very medical. For example, if someone was, struggling with reflux, oh, here, why don't you take some glutamine powder? Or here, why don't you drink some aloe vera juice? That's still not addressing the root cause of the reflux, even though the treatment is safer than a prescription Prilosec or proton pump inhibitor. You're still not getting to root cause by saying, here, drink aloe vera juice to reduce your reflux. Hey, what is it in your mind that's triggering you to manifest the symptom of reflux? That's what we want to ask ourselves. And that's where the stress component gets really unraveled because there's usually something in the mind, something that we're thinking, something that we're stuck on. You mentioned being stuck, that's allowing that symptom to show up for us. And it's really for us, to help us understand ourselves.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
most doctors are not going to be able to do that.
In 10 minutes, and especially when you have 10 minutes.
That's right. So you said something about ancient medicine. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, how is ancient medicine different from holistic? I mean, not holistic, from functional medicine.
Sure, yeah. So functional medicine I love. I love it. I practice kind of both. Functional is like the functioning system. So is there a connection between my symptoms and my gut health or my liver health or my nutrients or my hormones? It's looking at the functioning system as different parts, almost like you think of your car and different parts of the car. The engine's not working, this part, the radiator's off. So figuring out what part needs to be fixed. And that's fabulous because that's the more physical aspect of ourselves, which is important. Obviously, if I'm low in magnesium, I want to correct that, low in serotonin. Yet Ayurvedic, what I practice, Ayurvedic and all Eastern medicine, traditional Chinese medicine goes a layer deeper. We look at the energy body, the subtle body, which is that
Mm.
little woo-woo space where people go, what does that mean? Because we understand the physical. We're really good as Western doctors and as functional medicine doctors to fix the physical. Let me adjust, give you some selenium to help with the thyroid production, different things like that. But how about going to the energy, the subtle body? We call it the prana, the life force energy body. And look at that. In Chinese medicine, it's your qi. Looking at that energy body, figure out what's wrong there that's then triggering the physical, you know? And if we can understand, like even Einstein said, E equals mc squared, energy and mass are interchangeable. Your energy, your thoughts, the way you feel, your emotions influence your physical. And that's the piece that I really try to tie together.
Wow. Okay. So Ayurvedic medicine and ancient medicine are interchangeable, the same thing?
Yes. So ancient
Okay,
medicine.
I didn't know that. You see, I'm
So
learning right off the bat.
learning. Yeah. And so because not all function, I'm just to be honest, I've worked a lot of functional medicine, like 20, 30 years I've been in practice. There are quite a few functional medicine doctors, and that's fine, that I know that don't practice energy medicine.
Oh, no, no, no.
This
It's
is
a
very
very different
different.
skill.
And
Right.
and there are a lot of energy medicine practitioners that don't practice functional medicine. So we want to
Well,
make
because you need to know, specialize, which is why the Western medicine doctors don't practice any of that because they
they're
didn't
like,
learn
forget it.
that.
It's all like right. It's all like outside of our realm. And if you can break it down and understand who you're working with and who you're speaking to, I trained in both, but in all of them, actually, all three. I did Western medical. I trained. I'm a board certified neurologist, and I kept up with my boards. By the way, just completed them, and I trained in functional medicine, and I trained in Ayurvedic because I felt like every piece of it was helpful. I really love Ayurvedic and Eastern medicine, and we can go into what that is. I love that because to me, that's the real root. That's the root cause. When we get there, if you get there, it helps everything else. And why not get to the core of it? Right? And
Wow.
I saw some of my patients taking supplements, taking so many things. And I realized, wow, underneath it, there's this piece that hasn't been addressed. If you can address that piece of it, can I tell you, you won't need as many supplements or medications.
Well, I love energy. And one of my most I did an interview a couple months ago that stuck with me. I do a lot of interviews, of course. I've got like 700 of them. But this one stuck with me because the guy was talking about energy leaking from your cells. And for some reason, I've always looked at energy as the chakra systems, and people come on and talk about the chi and all that stuff. But when he put it down to individual cells leaking energy, I and he thought and what he was trying to say is things like gratitude and intention and surrender and trust and all these things, add energy to your cells. And when you have negative thoughts, your cells are leaking energy. So that's the same thing that you're
Same
talking
thing.
about here. Now, I was not aware that our Ayurvedic is energy. I thought that was usually food.
I'm glad. Okay, we should let's start by defining what Ayurveda is for the listeners. So Ayur, is life. Veda is wisdom, Veda. There was a Vedic civilization, Southeast Asia, thousands of years ago, 7,000 years ago. They formed different communities. Ayurveda are those the Vedic civilization that formed in India and created that science. Traditional Chinese medicine, homeopathy, all stem from that same Vedic wisdom. So there's going to be some core similarities if someone studies TCM versus Ayurveda versus homeopathy. It's all about coming back kind of into alignment, right? And so when you look at Ayurveda and you think about energy, and when you understand where food plays a role, which we'll go over, they believe in Ayurveda, the ancients, that, and this is what we follow, that the emotions and the physical are one, meaning even what you eat, even as I'm sipping on this cumin coriander fennel tea, that that tea has a vibration, has an energy to it. It has what we call prana life force to it. This is the funny thing. If I took I took a cup of water, let's say, and put some seeds in there and stuck it in the microwave, nuked it, for example, as they say, microwaved it. That changes the vibrational energy of the water. And what
Mhm.
Ayurvedic teachers of mine have said is don't microwave your food or your drinks. It changes the prana, the life force energy. Because as I'm drinking it, you've seen, I'm sure, those bottles that have the crystals inside them that people drink water from. There is a vibrational energy. And so you've, of course, heard of the experiment where you speak negative thoughts into a vessel of water and what happens in water molecules. So we have this body that has these atoms and the nucleus inside, and the rest of the atom is empty space. So all of that is filled with that energy. And there's a certain vibration that we give off. When someone walks into the room, have a high vibrational energy, you feel it. And when
Mm-hmm.
someone walks in that has a low vibe,
Mm-hmm.
they're like listless, and you're talking to them, and it's hard to even for them to smile. But then the person that's high vibe is animated, and oh my gosh, how are you? Great to see you, Myrna. How's everything been? You feel and you pick up, right? So it's not tangible, yet we feel it. And that's the beauty of the energy body. So Ayurveda talks about emotions and physical being one. And the idea is that we're all made up of 5 elements: air, space, fire, earth, and water. At birth, we're born into one nature. Some of us are more air-spaced element. We call them the vata types. Some are more the fire and water element individuals, with the pittas. Some are more earth and water, the kaphas. So your goal is to figure out who you're at birth, and are you living in alignment with yourself? And your system is based on energetic emotions and the food you bring in that has energy too, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the Ayurvedic food component, and that's the only one I heard about for some reason. I did
It's talked
not
about the
know.
most.
What was that?
Well, it's the most discussed is food.
Yeah, that's probably why I only heard about that. So that's amazing. Well, thank you for that and education. I'm learning along with my listening audience. Very good. All right. So your specific work is on stress.
Yeah.
And you talk about, I shouldn't say that. You just told me you do a whole bunch of things. But for our conversation today, we're going to be focusing on stress. So, and you talk about the stress personality types. I'm not sure if that's what you mentioned about the earth, fire, and how we're born in, but
Yeah.
what are they, and how can someone recognize theirs?
Yeah. So this leads into what we were kind of sharing earlier, is about the 5 elements and the 3 types. We're born into a state. That's our birth energy. That's supposed to be like our most balanced state. So let me go what like a vata looks like. If you're the vata type, moving, going, doing, very active, loves to speak, loves to be involved, is very much driven by the air and space movement wind element. So imagine wind blowing on you. You might feel a little dry or cold at times. That's when there's too much wind element. We start talking too much, moving too much. We go into that freeze state. Uh-oh, that's where stress shows up. So to me, stress is moving out of alignment, going into one of the states. So windy is too much vata, and we start to get tight in the neck, headaches, constipation, gas and bloating, and we start to move and go so much that we actually lose circadian rhythm. We're up and down at different times of the day. We're skipping meals. If you've entered that state, or you go in and out of that state, that's that windy personality state. The fire is that pitta at birth, more driven, more muscular, a little bit more type A and organized. Fires love to see. Fire gets you to see things, get to see how things should be done, and likes to follow through with them. Great speakers are fires. They're really great at being CEOs of companies because they're just so sharp and very good at kind of fixing things and organizing things. Get so much fire in your system, and anyone can get too much fire. You don't have to be fire at birth. What does that show up as? Hot-headed, angry, irritable, nausea, reflux, really sharp languaging, critical, really critical of self and others, and not a good place to be. The wind energy shows up to anxiety, by the way. Feeling restless, ADHD is too much windy. The fiery is that kind of hot-heady person. I'll think windy, you can even think of as like airheaded. Forget where things are. What was it? Where was I going? What was I doing? Because there's so much spinning in here. The last is the earth, the kapha. At birth, balanced. All 3 of these at balanced are fantastic. Kaphas have a bigger body frame. They're not necessarily obese. Kaphas have stronger bones, stronger frames. They have more muscle mass. They have more girth to them, more grounded, a little bit more introspected. Expective. Kaphas tend to be thinkers. They're not talking as much as the vata. They're processing. They're holding on to information. They're great listeners, right? Kaphas are fantastic in the kitchen. They love to cook. They love to just be at home. They don't like to be at a big party with lots of people. The vatas do. But too much kapha, you can imagine, let's say you get too withdrawn. You start getting depressed, heavy, congested. We're human. We go in and out of these states. What I look at is when I start seeing in my clinical practice individuals going into state, and I wrote one book called The Mysterious Mind back in 2015, focused a lot on migraine and the different types of headache types. The vata type is a tension headache, the fire is a migraine, and the kapha is a sinus headache for those that have headaches. And I started looking at these headache types and saying, well, why does someone keep going into kapha state? Like what kind of takes them there? So the first book was introducing of the states. The second book, The Stress RX, which I just wrote last year, was really, why do you get stuck in state? Like, fine, I get you're in this state, but why do you stay stuck there? And that, to me, the disconnect between birth state and where you are now equals stress. That's my way of measuring it, objectifying it. And then the physician's office, instead of saying you're stressed, saying this is why you're stressed. You're out of alignment. And hey, here's the food. Here's the type of medication, a meditation. I try to avoid medications. Medications are fine, but you can use medications according to your type too. The meditations, yoga, what can you do? Exercise that'll balance out your state. And that's kind of the approach to break down the stress personalities.
There's something powerful about the way you show up in the world, not just in your mindset, but how you carry yourself, how you feel in your own skin, and yes, even in what you wear. That's why I'm excited to share one of my favorite discoveries with you today, Quince. I recently paired a blue and white linen pants with a white linen top. I was impressed with the perfect fit, and casual luxury had everyone complimented my look. Quince makes it easy to refresh your wardrobe this spring with pieces that feel as good as they look. They use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra soft denim. Their lightweight linen pants, dresses, and tops start at just $30 and are effortless, breathable, and easy to wear on repeat. Everything at Quince is 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middleman, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/TYM for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/TYM for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TYM. Losing weight is one thing, but keeping it off, that's where it gets really frustrating. That's why Weight Loss by Hers now offers access to the FDA-approved Wegovy pill and the FDA-approved Wegovy pen. Wegovy is designed to help you lose weight and keep it off. With Wegovy at Hers, lose up to 20% or more of your body weight when combined with diet and exercise. It helps you regulate your appetite, eat less, and keep the weight off. Plus, Wegovy is the first ever GLP-1 pill for weight loss. Everything is 100% online through Hers. You'll connect with a licensed provider who will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is delivered right to your door. No insurance necessary. And it doesn't stop there. Weight Loss by Hers goes beyond medication by offering access to 24/7 messaging with your care team and tons of in-app lifestyle and nutrition tips like recipes, meal plans, fitness videos, sleep content, and more. Ready to reach your goals? Visit forhers.com/transform to get personalized, affordable care that gets you. That's forhers.com/transform. forhers.com/transform. Weight Loss by Hers is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk AS. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information, and restrictions, visit forhers.com. So how can someone figure out what's their stress personality type?
Well, I do have a quick.
Not everyone is going to have access to
Yeah.
an
Well, we have
Ayurvedic doctor. How can they figure
100%.
that out?
And I'm telling you, I was just telling you, I was at Stanford last weekend with a beautiful panel, and there are these top researchers from India. I had the #1 microbiome researcher, one of the top Ayurvedic clinicians. This is the conversation we had, and I did present out there, and I told them, I said, listen, I said, the way that I do this is I created this quiz on my website just to capture where you are. Are you windy, earthy, fiery? Little videos after that. It's free. It just takes a few minutes to take it. My goal is to get this out to everybody. It's a 5,000-year-old science, because once you figure out, hey, I'm the earthy type, you can then go right back to your diet and say, I should avoid cheese. Because you know what? According to Ayurveda, the earthy type doesn't do well with heavy foods like cheese or even gluten. And it's not to say that you have an intolerance or celiac, yet you're going to feel more heavy and earthy. And you know what you should do if you're an earthy type? You should be having some spices. And it could be jalapenos, it could be, turmeric, it could be whatever it is you choose. But let's spice up and increase the heat index of your food. So you break down that earth element, right? It's very,
Mhm.
very much makes sense, the science. If you're the fire type, well, what should you avoid? Fiery foods, spicy foods. It's the
Spices.
opposite diet, right? So when someone says fermented foods for
Wow.
all, fermented are great for your microbiome, that's not true according to Ayurveda. If you're the Pitta fire type, fermenting the food can increase your fire index and make you more uneasy with your fire energy. You get may get more headaches from it or stomach pain. So you want to really be careful. So stress quiz is the easiest way on the website just to, check it out and see what your stress type is.
Okay.
And then going further, it's really cool because you at least have a baseline of where to go.
Wow, I'm glad I asked the question. Yeah, wow, because I'm sitting there thinking, wow, how do I find out?
Good.
So all
And
right.
it changes. And it changes. I do have to say one thing before I forget. People will say to me, "Well, is that the type you're gonna?" Because I've heard this question before. Are you gonna be like type every single time, or does it change? Your birth nature doesn't change. Okay, that's not gonna change. But your stress energy, hello hormones. I'm 54. When you get to be different ages or different hormonal bounces, or you just traveled, like I got back at 11 p.m. last night. I mentioned, depending on the amount of sleep you've had, your stress take can change. What I encourage people to do is take the quiz and then like a month later, take it again and just see, does it make sense to you? Just get comfortable with the language because this isn't going anywhere. It's 5,000 years old, this wisdom. And the way Western medicine is going, I think we really do need to embrace some of these ancient principles so we can get healthy.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely do need help. Since people are getting worse and so we're getting better, even with all of this technology and science. Sicknesses doesn't seem to be getting any better. We should be healthier.
The numbers?
Instead, we're not. So I'm glad that we're starting to blend Eastern and Western medicine, and the Western now are into the meditation and the yoga and the mind body, which is my focus and your focus, and energy and chi and all that. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're not separating the physical anymore.
Yep.
We understand that the spiritual is all wrapped up in our health. So amazing. All right. So
Yep.
a lot of women feel burnt out and overwhelmed. So what's actually happening in their body with if we're going to go down the energy, pathway?
Yeah, and in this last book, I wrote a whole chapter on energy, and I wanted to tie this to what I wrote in the first book, which is adrenal fatigue. And you might have heard this conversation come up quite a bit. It was Ariana Huffington that wrote a book called Thrive, and a lot of people talked about adrenal fatigue about a decade or so ago, even longer. I did a study in my clinic, and this is in the first book. I actually wrote about this study. I looked at 83 patients and assessed their adrenal function. And for those, to be familiar with the adrenal glands, they're sitting in the back above the kidneys behind. You put your hands on your back, the adrenal glands are right above your kidneys. Small little structures that are helping us regulate our cortisol. And in the morning, we wake up, the divine internal mother, I call it the hypothalamus, kind of in the deep of the brain, circadian pacemaker says, okay, time to wake up, communicates with the pituitary gland, activates the adrenal glands. We make cortisol, the highest amount first thing in the morning. And then we should bring the cortisol down at noon, down at 3 p.m., down at bedtime, go to melatonin production from serotonin, fall asleep. Beautiful rhythm. Well, most people aren't doing that. Unfortunately, what happens is in the morning, either they're waking up at a later time or waking up without a good night of sleep, their adrenal rhythm, they may drink an immediate cup of coffee when they wake up, may get on intense, conversations, email, social media, whatever it might be that kind of pushes their cortisol. And we kind of go off rhythm. And not just once or twice during the day, but many times during the day. And when I studied in these 83 patients, I looked at their natural rhythm and I found that pretty much 90% of the patients were in what we called at that time adrenal fatigue. They weren't making enough cortisol, adrenal hormone, which actually is like your natural steroid. So there's a physical component to burnout. It's actually that adrenal system backing out. Yet it's not the adrenal glands that are a problem. It's really the signaling, the whole axis, right? The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, because every time we make extra cortisol, the system wants to turn itself off. It has this automatic regulation, self regulation system with that inhibitory feedback loop where we turn off. Yet we egoic human beings push through. Like, I know I'm a little dehydrated. I'm going to keep going. Oh, I know it's lunchtime. I'm going to push through. I know it's late at night, but I want to watch this next episode of Netflix. We keep pushing through the natural signals the system gives us. Oh, little neck pain, just keep going. And we push through to a point where finally the hypothalamus takes a back seat. Those receptors on the hypothalamus get desensitized to the signals of the cortisol. And then the adrenals kind of drop out. And truly, it's they call it HPA maladaptation. There's a disconnect between the hypothalamic axis and the adrenals, and the whole system drops out. So I noticed in my patients, they were taking initially, like, one or two maybe over-the-counter meds a week to break their tension headaches. Then they moved up to stronger medication. And then suddenly migraines are coming more intensely for longer periods of time with the more associated symptoms. And then, go figure, I was prescribing steroids. To break their migraine cycles. And it just made so much sense. I'm like, this is adrenal fatigue. I mean, I'm given steroids because the body isn't making steroids. So when I studied them and I started to say, well, what is it that's pushing you? So the first stage of burnout is really oftentimes us saying yes to too many things.
If you're in a journey of transforming your mind, your body has to come with you. You can't pour into your purpose when your energy is running on empty. Let's be real. So many of us are trying to push through fatigue, brain fog, and long days, relying on caffeine that spikes us up and then drops us right back down. That cycle is not sustainable. That's why I love Spark Energy Plus Focus. It's my go-to drink for my pre-workout rituals or when I need reliable energy to power through life. So whether I'm recording, coaching, showing properties, or just trying to stay present and productive throughout the day, it helps me show up as my best self. If you're feeling depleted and you're ready for a better way to fuel your day, go ahead and check out Spark Energy Plus Focus. Spark has 120 milligrams of caffeine. Amino acids and taurine help balance the caffeine without jitters or crashes. If you're ready to add spark to your life, Spark Energy Plus Focus is offering 30% off and free shipping. Go to drinkspark.com and use code TRANSFORM at checkout. That code again is TRANSFORM at DRINKSPARK.com.
Getting out of alignment, but the truth is we don't often know. Like, if you don't know your natural tendency, like if I'm a Pitta type or if I'm a Kapha earthy type, maybe the earthy type person has to be in a lot of social interactive meetings, and that's not their personality type. They don't do well with that. And every time they're in meetings or in social interactions, they get stressed, Or the Pitta person, I have so many Pitta individuals with migraine. Excuse me. Excuse me for that. Yeah. Migraine is Pitta. So a lot of my Pitta patients were, I had a little seed. Can we pause? Note to self. So for the Pitta individual, what we'll notice is that oftentimes the fire energy gets them to push harder. So they're more intense. They're not necessarily saying yes to a lot of things. They're just more intense with each thing they do. And that intensity kind of turns up your heat index. And you end up saying, oh, I've got to push through that lunch meeting or push through lunch and keep going to that meeting. Or when they're working out, you'll notice they're the ones in class. They're pushing really hard, And that energy, unfortunately, can increase the fire, which then turns into inflammation, And then the windy person is often skipping. I told you earlier, skipping things, skipping meals, disregarding bedtime routines, like who needs to go to sleep on time or get to bed at the right time? And so oftentimes that excess wind will create imbalance and symptoms. So the beauty of just understanding this, and this is the beauty of it, is like once you say, okay, I got it, I'm pushing my state out of alignment, I can actually set some boundaries for myself, start to create a rhythm that is in balance. The adrenals naturally come back. It's so simple. Sometimes I just point out one or two things. Hey, do you notice you skip lunch every day? This is the most common one. And why do you skip lunch? Well, I've got the business meeting, I've got work projects, I've got this. And like I said, I work with a lot of fire people because the migraine work I do. And I say, how about we just for 1 month? Can we do this for a month? If not a month, a week, have lunch every day. And you'd be surprised how migraines would get better. And so you see how there's a connection between lifestyle, energy, and also the physical. And so instead of just giving them like magnesium supplements like I would do, or CoQ10, which helps migraines, or do things like that to fix the physical, it's working on that energy body too, which then improves the situation and it addresses the stress that's underneath the burnout. So for a lot of people that are struggling with burnout, I often say, number one, know your type. If you're the windy, are you moving, going too much? If you're the fiery, are you too intense? If you're the earthy, are you in situations that's pushing you out of your natural state and you need more of this rest? Most earthy people, I find that they're earthy because they've been too windy and too fiery for too long, and they do
Okay.
burn out and they turn into like a fatigued earthy type, if that makes sense.
Okay. Well, you also talk about the mind when we first started. So I personally think that stress comes from the mind. So
Yes.
can you tie in the mind piece? I mean, we're talking about
Yes.
the energy piece. So how
Yeah.
can we tie in the mind piece? Looking at this same scenario of burnout.
Yeah. And that's exactly the three brain model that I kind of describe it that way. The first brain, the central nervous system, is how we think, how we process stress, and how we process the world. So if I believe I'm in danger, if I believe I need to get this done, if I say I have to, I must, I'm going to skip lunch to get this project done because God forbid I don't get it done. I put so much pressure on myself. The second brain, though, is the emotions underneath it. And oftentimes, what's underneath that? Fear? Am I scared? Am I worried? Am I anxious? That's creating that language pattern in my head. And, kind of just recognizing the first and second brain. Second is the enteric nervous system, the feeling brain. And the third is the microbiome, which is working on diet and drinking the right teas and all that. The idea is, which we've done enough about the dog, really is what I think is most important is what you're saying. I actually think the mind is just why I align so much with your work. It is the key area. If we can work on the mind, everything else, right, comes into place because we start
Course.
to then make the right choices and decisions. We start to not get pulled by all those around us. And so, I package it in that way, using the Ayurvedic model. Yet at the end of the day, we all have the same message of just if we could, get in there and figure out what is that circuit that keeps us operating out of alignment. That's really what causes symptoms and disease.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good.
Yep.
So, I had a question here about the tree brain reset. So we
Yes.
can talk about it now. So
Yeah.
how can you reset yourself when you know that you're stressed? You know that you're burnout. You don't need to go to a doctor. You know you're in the overwhelmed state, right? You talked about the physical manifestations of you're getting migraines, right? Not everybody gets migraines, but you're tired, you're overwhelmed.
Right.
You need a reset. How do you reset?
The first step is number one, being compassionate with yourself, because obviously there's something that you've allowed yourself to do that has moved your own physiology out of alignment. And I do say it's a choice that we're making each and every day to move into a space where we oftentimes, and this is just especially a lot of women I meet, myself included, we say yes, we get ourselves engaged in things. I was just talking about how I got pulled into this panel and, we want to be there, be present and do. And yet at the same time, we don't often move inwards and do some self-care. So step one, have compassion because you're doing this because you care. Oftentimes it's because we care so much about our cause or our people, or we give and give and give. And then turn that around and start having this compassion turn inward for yourself. And the first thing I ask my clients to do is, and I just finished actually a 6-week coaching group where I said, you guys, for the next 6 weeks, you are near number one. You are going to be number one. No one else is allowed to take number one position. I don't want to hear it. And I had one client is like, my father is sick and he's going through this. I said, absolutely. And that's why you need to take
Yeah.
care of yourself a
Some
bit
women
more.
would say they're children.
Yeah. Yes, and their children, and I have kids. I had a mom that was sick for 7 years. I get that. I've been there. I'm not just speaking out of I get that. Yet, who is more important than yourself to take care of, right? Put that oxygen mask on first with you before you put on
Yeah.
your child at the plane. So if we can start our day with just one thing, quiet, just 2 minutes of quiet. What you choose to do in that quiet, it could be a quiet reading from the Bible. It could be 2 minutes of breathing. It could be just 2 minutes of journaling about your day. Whatever you do, but 2 minutes minimum. And I have different breath techniques I teach and different things that we could do in that 2 minutes, even a few stretches and yoga poses, whatever it is. If you just even set that routine, what amazing things happen is things start to flow in. The universe starts to come in and help you out, doesn't it? Right? The spiritual side of us, I think it awakens because we realize we're not in this alone. We're not in this alone. We don't have to fix our kids or fix our, the person, the parent, or solve the world's problems at work. We are just an instrument of above. And if we start to just settle in, receive, be present, and then say, how can I serve today? What is it I can do to be my best self? And oftentimes changing the reflection in that way, but then really allowing yourself to be number one, because that is what is needed to get out there and serve. If I'm in pain, if I'm having headaches, neck pain, body pain, how can I serve in that fashion? I'm barely present, right? So the only way to clear all of that physical impairment is to start to balance out your mind and balance out where you are. And that starts with that morning practice. And I always recommend 2 minutes, if nothing else, 2 minutes of morning practice. No one can say no to 2 minutes. All of us have time for 2 minutes, right?
Yeah, you're right. It's a lot of people always think that you got to do 30 minutes and you've got to, like my first introduction to any of this spirituality and consciousness is Deepak Chopra.
Yeah.
And he tells you 30 minutes in the morning, sorry, 30 minutes
Yeah.
at night. And
Yeah.
you feel that you don't, but yeah, people are bringing it down to 1 minute.
1 minute. I trained in, I'm going to tell you, I trained in transcendental meditation. And I remember when I did TM training, which was about 15 years ago, and I loved it. I loved TM. The thing about it was you have to do 20 minutes twice a day. Now I had 2 clinics. I had 2 kids less than age 10. There was so much going on. And I said, 20 minutes twice a day. How am I going to make time for that? Grocery shop and get dinner on the table and all that. And the reality is after 6 months, I did it for 6 months, but I stopped because
Well, at least you committed to 6 months.
I did do 6
It
months.
should have been ingrained in you after that because you
Yeah.
have to get the habit, right?
And I just even carving out, honestly, it was that second 20 minutes. The first 20 was easy. It was the second 20 because something would happen at the clinic. A patient needed to be put into my schedule. The nanny had to leave early. There was something to get the second 20.
Right,
And when you have young kids, I'm like, well, man, meditate with you two sitting when you want to eat dinner. Like, just ignore me. And so as much as I want to put myself first, there's a reality to it and there's a trick. And so I think the morning is gold, right? We can all do it in the morning. Everyone just wake up a few minutes early.
Early, exactly,
You wake up
exactly.
5
And
minutes.
it's very, very important to set the tone of your day. I mean, it's not even me time, but it's allows you to show up better, right? And yeah, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you take. But everybody's been talking about a morning routine, and I have like a 2-hour one.
Yeah.
So I work for myself, right?
Yes. And I
So
have
my
one now,
morning
but I'm a
routine is
kids are
like
out of the
2
house.
hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine is about 45 minutes, and it's because my kids are out of the house. I could do 45 minutes.
Right.
So the reality is, when the kids are young, I know a lot of people out there, they don't have the luxury of that time, right?
Right,
And you
yes.
have to just let everyone know that wherever they are, if you can do more, by all means, do more, of course. And then be on breath, because for some, another thing I learned about TM, if you go right into meditation, a lot of individuals, their mind starts to spin about their challenges. It's better to breathe, practice a breathing meditation.
Right.
And the ones that I suggest, the breathing meditation gets you out of the monkey mind. It gets you into your, and that to me is the most powerful.
And also guided meditation. I tell my sister that
Yeah.
she should meditate, and the first thing she says, she can't meditate. And I'm thinking everybody can meditate. Even if you do guided meditations, 90% of the times that I do meditation is guided. And because I know how to do the breathing, I know how to, concentrate on body parts. So I don't always need the guided meditation because I know I can do it myself. But for people that can't do it themselves, they can follow along.
Right. Right. One of my favorites is like a grounding meditation. Put your feet on the ground. You imagine yourself connect with the earth's energy, and just, you're right, using some visualization or some feelings and not being quiet. The whole thing about being quiet. Oh, that's where the mind can spin. So there's so many, right? There's so many tools. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Pick one. Whatever.
I do a meditation before I start my interview.
Yeah.
And it is just tightening up and bringing my breath all the way to my head and then holding it for 10 and then relaxing my spine and my nervous system. And I do it 3 times, which is, like a minute or something. But that does a couple of things. It relaxes me. I think it makes me more alert because I'm sending, the breath to my head, right? And yeah, so stuff like that. And it works, so
Beautiful. How
yeah,
beautiful is
yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And it
yeah.
feels good. And then when you said earlier, me time, I kind of think it's we time, right? It's
Yeah,
us and spirit. If those are listening, believe
yeah,
the
yeah,
divine. It's like kind of me hanging out with the divine for a little in the morning and just saying, and it's so important with setting yourself right. Like,
yeah,
what's my goal for today? What would you like me to do for today?
yeah.
And just be in that moment. And it's so beautiful to just say, I'm grateful and thankful for, and how
I
just,
know the
yeah,
gratitude meditation and all that stuff.
yeah,
I've never been able to do the reflection at night that Deepak talks about.
yeah.
Not I say I've never been able to do it, but I
Hmm.
never made it a habit to do, and I've never actually done it. I
Yeah.
do meditate before I go to bed,
Yeah.
and that just put me to sleep. But I never did the reflection, which is basically what he said. The second 30 minutes is supposed to do go through what you've done during the day and say what
Exactly.
well worked for you and what didn't.
Yeah.
I haven't done that, but
Yeah.
that's also good.
Yeah. You know what I actually am enjoying more with my coaching clients is doing something called a negativity journal. It was this Arthur Brooks at Harvard, the happiness guy. He has the #1 happiness class at Harvard. And he talks about this thing called the negativity journal, which I really like. It's like if you have a challenging situation, just write down what the situation was. You don't have to have any processing thought about it. Just like this is what happened. If at that moment you understand why it happened for you, you can write about it. If not, a week, a month, maybe even a year later, you might come to some aha. Oh, this is why this happened. And eventually, you don't even need to write it down. Something will happen. And it's like, oh, okay, that happened for me for this reason. And suddenly you start to look at life a little differently. And then life doesn't become so challenging. It's like a whole series of things that are just trying to direct you. And I had something happen to me recently where I was part of this board and it was just kind of an interesting kind of conversation we're having with the board. And I'm more integrative. They're not so much more integrated. And I was kind of noticing I don't really align and I'm feeling like, maybe my voice here isn't really being heard. And that's okay. That's okay. Because I think my path is over here. And that's all right. And I actually, to be honest with you, I resigned. I was the president of this board. And I resigned because it was good. They weren't honoring what I was saying, and it's fine, yet I didn't align anymore. So for them getting upset and angry, why aren't they listening to me? How come my suggestions aren't being taken? I said, why is this happening for me? How come I'm getting off these calls and feeling off, even though I'm the president, right? Whereas, okay, I get it. I'm over here, they're over here. All good. And you kind of close one door and make space for another, right? I think that's
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
beautiful. I will adopt that
I
because
like
I have something I do believe, part of my spirituality is that everything happens for a reason.
yes.
And even the negative things. In fact, this interview that I was telling you about, this guy was saying the same thing. When you do the gratitude journal, even the bad things, be grateful for it because those bad things
In fact, that's what I was telling
are good for you.
the most
So yeah, I'm
challenging
gonna
person in your
adopt
life.
your negativity journal, which is great because
Yeah.
yeah, you don't know why is it good, but
Yeah.
somehow or it's gonna work out for your good. I
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. And sometimes I always say the most challenging person in your life is your greatest teacher. The most
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
they're getting
And
angry, pissed off.
repeat the guy the book again that you said he has a happy.
Oh, Arthur Brooks. He actually just co-authored a book with Oprah. And there's a great
Oh,
podcast that they did together. Arthur Brooks, he's the #1 happiness guy at Harvard. Yeah. The
happiness
that
guy.
actual
Okay.
name of his book, but his book that he just co-authored with Oprah is also something they've been recently talking about. And I'll just do a little quick look. But he's his here it is from strength to strength. From strength to strength.
Love it.
Isn't that a great book title?
Yeah, okay.
Finding
Wow.
and deep purpose in the second half of life. And so great concept there, right? And I think at the end of the day, we're all wanting to move from, I call it the stress personality state, that disconnected state, to this, we call it in Ayurvedic medicine and ancient medicine, you know, Ananda bliss, the Nanda Maya kosha, that deep
Oh
bliss.
my gosh.
You like Ananda?
Deepak again.
Great. Yeah. Well, he says Ayurveda, so but Deepak's gonna be the Ayurveda guy, yeah. So he's quoting what
Dang.
I'm gonna give credit to Ayurveda, I'll be frank with you, because The ancient wisdom, 5,000 years old. So
That's right. Yes.
thousands of years ago. So Nanda Maya Kosha, the reality of getting to that state, and I talk about this in one of the chapters of the book, the chakras and all that. It's getting past the chakra blocks. What's blocking my root chakra? What's blocking my sacral? Why I can't be emotional? What's blocking my solar plexus? What's creating imbalances? It's oftentimes our programmed self, right? The thinking patterns and the way we've lived and grown up to be. Once you clear all that, though, once you clear the programs, once you do some housekeeping in those chakras, I believe that yoga, breath work, all these things help. And you start to connect to that Ananda. When you get connected to Ananda, the bliss state, you then shoulders drop and then you receive. And that's the beautiful things because life just becomes a lot easier to live. Things just start happening for you. The money comes in, the jobs come in, the friends come in. Really, it's an abundance place. And it's
Yeah.
wonderful because you aren't trying so hard to survive. You really start to live. And I think it is movement towards that I want everyone to move towards because they can. I just want everyone to know they can move towards that state. Starts with a little bit of that breath practice, a little bit of kind of connection with self, and then, go deeper, trying to read the books,
Awesome.
books. And,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I did Deepak Chopra's guided meditations for a long time. As when he was working with Oprah as well. I
Yeah.
was on those classes, and he always ended with Ananda, Bliss. That's where
Yeah.
you get to.
Yeah.
But you just reminded me of something that I've been practicing recently because when I heard it, I thought it was so amazing. I love Indian philosophy. That's why, if you've listened to my show, I ended with Namaste,
Yes.
totally from India.
Yeah.
And so Deepak Chopra, I listen to some of the monks, Thich Nhat Hanh, but
Yeah.
the person that I've been following recently is
Mhm.
Sadhguru.
Oh my God,
And
yeah.
I was listening to a talk that he had the other day. And whenever it says mind, I'm there because
Yeah.
that's, my ministry. And he was talking about the mind. And he says, in order to get behind this mirror, he says, when you look in the mirror, you see yourself, you see your mind, even your dreams. He said it's part of your mind, right?
Right.
But he said to get behind the mind, to get behind the mirror, you've got to feel, and he talked about pleasantness. He says, well, when you feel good, it's pleasantness. So
Mhm.
I've been focusing a lot now on feeling the pleasantness in my body because I'm
Yeah.
figuring I'm getting behind that mirror.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's kind of like the three brain, the whole thinking, feeling. If we don't pause and feel, and feeling pleasantness is this idea of going into that space of your emotions. And even with that gratefulness exercise, if we can just take a moment and feel how grateful we are for something, feel how happy we are when we see our kids or our dog, or we're so grateful for our whatever career we're in or path or, friendships, whatever it might be that gives you that good feeling. That then allows the thinking brain to quiet down. Then you're not in that spinning, anxious, angry, frustrated state. You move out of thinking, you go into feeling. So I do think the second brain, the 600 million neurons down there, you make all the neurotransmitters in your gut that you need to make. In fact, 90% of your serotonin comes from your gut. Yet we don't often as humans pause and feel. We're so go, 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 move, 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 do, do, do. And we let our front, like thinking brain direct us when actually we feel first and then we think. When you walk into a room, the amygdala pick up a feeling at a subconscious level, and then we generate a thought after we feel. So
Mhm.
for most people, if we can pause in that 2 minutes in the morning, go into like a quiet place and just feel and do something that allows you, like that's our journaling I like so much, the positive journaling, gratefulness journaling, or whatever it is you might want to journal about. It allows you to go into a feeling, and then you walk into your day a little bit more clear because you felt first, then your thinking is a little bit more aligned, right? And breathing, actually, it's amazing how breathing, because it clears the mind. If you pause after you breathe, you're more into the feeling intuitive center. Anything that
Yeah.
quiets down your mind, get your day.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way.
I mean, and the word is so different too, because you're right. I mean, and in the West, we don't say things like pleasantness. We say,
Don't say that.
so he says, you feel the pleasantness, right? And
Yeah.
I have been aware of it whenever I feel good in my body, when I feel pleasant. And it's
Yeah.
sometimes he says it's just a moment, right?
Moment.
It's just a moment, and you feel it. And anyway,
Right.
I've been doing that recently.
I love it.
I've been concentrating on feeling the pleasantness in my body. So that's
Yeah.
great because what he's saying is you need to get behind the mirror of the mind, right? If you don't
Exactly.
get behind there, you're always, like you were calling it, the
Right.
thinking brain and the feeling brain
Yeah.
and the three brain. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of ways to say the same thing. But I
Exactly.
mean, right.
Packages differently. We're all saying the
Yeah,
same
it's
thing.
packages differently. So
However, it
amazing.
fits with everybody, and as long as it lands in a place where people take action with it, I think that's the most important thing, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Mhm,
I love
mhm.
it. Okay. All right. So tell our listeners about your book,
Yep,
about your program, which is
yeah.
called the Three Brain Reset, how they can, connect with you, your website, your social media, things like that.
Yeah. So thank you, first of all, for having me. I loved just conversation was so lovely, and really, my goal is to teach Ayurveda in a Western way. So the first book, The Mysterious Mind, written in 2015, a little bit more for migraine, talks about adrenal fatigue and food intolerances and like the root cause of kind of why we go into these three states: Vata, Pitta, Kapha. A little description about how those look. Tiny bit more headache focused, but good for everybody. Second book in 2025 was written. The Stress RX goes deeper. They're both available on my website, Trupti Gokani MD. And Stress RX goes into more of the deeper, specifically trauma, what keeps us stuck, our program patterns and how to break them. And I think it's a really nice tool to have, especially if you're kind of struggling with mental health issues, you're struggling with chronic issues, and you're like, how come I'm seeing the therapist and the doctor and I'm not getting anywhere? Or, this might give you some perspective that's a little different. That's what when I was in first year medical school, to be honest with you, I found Ayurveda because I was struggling with sleep issues. And this
Mm.
literature, the Ayurvedic literature, I read, but I read it for years and years and years and finally got it. I'm trying to make it easier for people to have access to it. So those are the two books. They're both available on the website. I do have a consultation for people that want to do in a 6 week, kind of, I do like these 6 week short um, challenges. So if you feel like you want to kind of dip your toe in it, learn about it, I have a couple different offerings. I do work a lot with corporate, but I do some smaller groups that I open up once or twice a year. They're welcome to kind of apply for a consultation for that to see if they'd be a good fit. And that's also on my website. So triptygokanimd.com. And, the goal is to get Ayurveda in your back pocket because it saved me from so many things, saved my kids and my family and lots of patients who are really, struggling. It gave them some answers and gave them hope where they're feeling lost.
Yeah. So it's amazing. Yeah, I have to learn more about the Ayurvedic medicine and system. Like I said, I've only heard people talk about the foods, and I did not know that it had anything to do with your energy body. So that's pretty good. So yeah, I'll definitely pick up a copy of your book because that's how you learn, right? You
Thank you.
read.
I love it. I love it. I love your feedback too, honest feedback. And I think it took me 5 years to write it. And it was really in the midst of my mom being kind of ill. And a lot of what was being missed at the doctor's office, a lot of her thinking brain emotions and blending Ayurveda with that. And I try to package it so it's really understandable for the Western audience.
Beautiful, beautiful. Love it, love it, love it. All right. Well, listen, this was a very powerful conversation with Dr. Gokani. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this episode is this: your stress is not your enemy, it's a message. And when you learn how to listen, you begin to heal. Remember that you're not broken, you're not failing, your body's responding exactly the way it was designed to. You just need the right tools to reset it. So if this episode spoke to you, make sure you share it with someone who needs to hear this message. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode that helps you transform your mind and your life. And if you're ready to go deeper, if you're ready to do the work and truly heal from the inside out, visit my website, which is myrnayoung.com, and check out the resources designed just for you. I will have an article on my conversation with Dr. Gokani on my website with links to her website, her social media, as well as her books so that you can start reading. I didn't ask you for your social media
Oh, yes.
handle. What is
Thank you
it?
for asking. I was just thinking that at Dr. Gokani is Instagram. That's probably the easiest one. I would just probably connect there. I'm there the most at Dr. Gokani.
All right, awesome. So I will link out to that.
Thank you.
So, with that said, any last words before you wrap up?
Just, know that I came into this from a Western angle. Even though it's ancient 5,000-year-old medicine, I was a very Western person. I was actually born in Africa. That's a different story. Even though I'm Indian of origin. So I didn't grow up with Ayurveda. But I promise you, if you just start with few simple things, start with that 2 minutes in the morning, your life will change. I promise your life will transform. Just start small, make it doable, but put yourself number one, first on the list.
I love that. I love that. I love the promise. Yes, you will transform your life.
Yeah.
I love it. That's our promise to you guys here. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Gokani, for being on the show. I love our conversation, and I love when I learned something. You know what I mean? So because this is life school. So thank you for being on the show. Thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode of Transform Your Mind so that you can transform your life. Today we were with Dr. Gokani, who taught us about stress and our stress personalities and how to incorporate Ayurvedic medicine and energy to de-stress ourselves and transform our life. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Dr. Gokani, for being on the show. Until next time, keep choosing growth, keep choosing healing, and keep transforming your mind. All right. So namaste.
Namaste. Bye bye.
Yes.